All right, so today we're going to talk about finding circumference of circles. Now, before we do need to discuss some characteristics of circles. So the first thing circles have is something called the diameter, which a diameter is a line segment that passes through the center of a circle and has both endpoints on the circle. So for instance, in my picture, the diameter would be the pink line. Circles also have something called the radius. The radius is a line segment that has an endpoint on the center of the circle and has the other endpoint on the edge of the circle. So in my picture, it would be this blue line. Now, as far as what circumference is the distance around the circle. So we're acting like we're finding the perimeter of a circle. We just can't find the perimeter because we can't add the sides because circles don't have sides. So, the cool thing about the radius is we know that the radius is half of the diameter. So that means if I'm given the diameter, I could cut it in half and I will have found my radius. Or I could do the opposite. And if I'm given my radius, I could multiply times 2, and I would be given my diameter. Now, the cool thing about circumference is there is formulas for it, and they are given to us on our reference sheet. So when you see the word circumference anywhere in a word problem, you're going to want to automatically go to your reference sheet so that you can see which formula you need to use. So the first formula that you should see is C equals 2 pi r. Now remember, when you see numbers and variables side by side to each other, it means they're being multiplied. So in this formula, we would take 2, multiply it times pi, multiply it times r, which r just stands for the radius. Now you're probably wondering what pi is, because no, I'm not talking about food. In math class, pi stands for the number 3.14. And if you don't remember that number, don't worry, because it is also on your reference sheet, just more down at the bottom. So the next formula for circumference is C equals pi times D, which again, variables side by side to each other means they're being multiplied. So in this formula, we would take pi, which is 3.14, and just multiply it times d, which in this case represents our diameter. So here we have a circle, and anytime that you're given a circle and you want to find the circumference, you need to look at the information that they give you. So in this case, we're given the radius. So the radius is equal to 6. Now the reason you want to do this is because it's obviously going to help you determine which formula you're going to use to find the circumference. So for this circle, we're going to want to use the formula C equals 2 pi r. So all I need to do now is plug in my numbers for pi and my radius and then multiply. So I'm going to take 2, multiply it times 3.14, and times my radius, which is 6. So after I do this, 2 times 3.14, move my decimal twice, so I get 6.28. And then I just need to multiply that times my 6, times my radius. So if we do that, eight times 6 is 48, 6 times 2 is 12, 16, 36, 37, and move my decimal twice, which I'm sorry guys, my pen's not writing as well, so that line is decimal. But my circumference of this circle would be 37 and 68 hundredths. So example 2. Now this doesn't quite look like a circle. It looks like they've taken a circle and they've cut it in half. And this is very important to know. So first thing, like I said, we need to determine what information we're given. So in this circle, we have the diameter. So looking at my formulas, between my two formulas, I'm going to want to use the formula C equals pi times diameter. So let's think about this one, because if they cut my circle in half, I think that I also need to do that to my formula to make sure my circumference is correct. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in my formula so that I make sure I do it completely. So like last time, we're just going to go ahead and plug in our numbers. So pi is 3.14, and remember it's on your reference sheet if you don't remember it. My diameter is 12, and then we're going to divide all that by 2. So if I multiply 3.14 times 12, again, bear with me, my pen's not writing the best. My placeholder, and then add them up. Move my decimal twice. Ooh, guys, and that's a 3. Again, I apologize. So I got 37 68/100ths. And now to finally get my circumference, again, we're dividing by 2 because they cut my circle in half. They divide it into 2 pieces. So I need to do the same thing to my circumference. So we're going to divide by 2. Ooh, this is going to be tight. I'm just not going to be able to finish it, it looks like. At least not showing my work, but that's okay. So my final answer for the circumference of this circle is 18 84/100ths. So the distance starting at this end point all the way around to this end point for this circle would be 18 84/100ths. So on to my last example. So again, here we have a weird looking circle. This time they didn't cut it in half, but they cut it into 4 pieces. Usually when I see this type of circle, I think of a pizza slice. They've cut my pizza into 4 sections. So again, we want to determine what information we're given, and in this circle we're given the radius. Now anytime you have a quarter circle, you're always going to be given the radius. So, again, that also means we're probably going to want to use the formula that has radius in it. So 2 times pi times radius. Now, again, since they cut our circle into pieces, we also need to cut our formula into pieces. And like I said, they cut this one into 4 sections, so we're going to cut our circumference into 4. So we're going to have to divide by 4 to get our final circumference. So let's go ahead and plug in our numbers to the formula. So we have 2 times pi times my radius, and then don't forget about dividing it by 4 because they've divided my circle into 4 pieces. Now in this one, to make things easier, I'm going to do all my multiplication, then obviously divide last, but I could multiply my 2 times 4 first, because I know that one right off the top of my head, which is 8. And then I can take my 8 and multiply it times my pi of 3.14, just to kind of make things easier. Move my decimal twice, so I get 25.12 after I've multiplied them all out. And then to get my final answer for my circumference, I just need to do the last thing of dividing by 4. So if I come over here and do that, can't go into 2, but it goes into 25 6 times. And then that would be 8. And bring my decimal up. So my circumference for this quarter circle would be 6 28/100ths. So the distance going from this endpoint to this endpoint of this quarter circle, is 6.28, which again, I apologize, it's a weird looking decimal. I hope you have enjoyed Mrs. Mills live reporting from her house.